YouTube. This is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Friday 23rd of March 2018. And today I just want to look at the question of fun. Because we live in a society, in the Western society now, I suppose, well, there's always been an element of it, this frivolous way of life, etc. And a certain amount of it, I suppose, is necessary to offset the labours, etc. But we live in a world now where fun is a cult, really. And if you, like I grew up in it, you've heard probably, if you're watching this channel, you're somebody who thinks about life quite deeply, and you've been told many times in your life just to stop thinking so much, etc., and just have a good time. And I suppose the latest manifestation of this is YOLO, you only live once, which is used as a justification for wasting this life, I suppose. But it's the infantilization of life that's what I really want to concentrate on in this short talk. People who lived prior to the so-called modern age had an awareness of death, and for several reasons. Firstly, they often lived, especially if they were poor, many people to one room or a couple of rooms, so they were close to the process of birth, because when the women were giving birth, everybody heard and everybody was aware of it, and obviously the incidence of deaths in birth was high, so you were close to the birth process as you were to the death process. And people died, statistically a lot more people died very young. If you made it through the first 10 years or so, you probably had a fairly good shot, but even so, people didn't live these huge long lives. But what's happened to us, especially in the West, is that we are cosseted and we are protected against the eventuality of death. And people don't see it. They don't see death. So again, before, people living in poor circumstances, grandma would be sort of deteriorating in the corner, or whoever it was, and you saw that. You saw the full arc of life, and your own mortality was sort of placed within these bookends mentally. Well, those bookends have been removed, and I think this is is one of the reasons why people don't get how serious this life is, because they don't see it, they don't touch it. As I touched on in a previous video, war has been trivialized, it's been outsourced, it's something that other people do. Whereas before, even 100 years ago, since the end of national service, I'm not extolling the virtues of war. I'm just saying that you were much closer to it as a fact, and your own mortality and the sort of the almost fragile nature of your life was more immediate to you than it is now. Leaving aside the fact that we're inundated with so-called entertainment. So now what we have is this idea of fun, and nothing cannot be justified on the basis of fun. If it's fun, then therefore it's good. What is fun? Well, fun is a sort of amusement, isn't it? It's a bland, pleasant feeling based on amusement, which is just sort of, I suppose, nice as opposed to unnice. Well, amusement is amusement, away from thinking. So again, if we go back to the thinking too much thing, which I'm sure many people on this channel have been accused of, perhaps it's that you don't have a high enough requirement or satisfaction level with the fun that you're being offered. So it's a bit hard to be very into fun if you can't forget about the main thing. The main thing is just that this life is not an infinite round of bland joy. No matter how wonderful this life may or may not appear to be to any of us, the fact is that it is finite, and some of us find it difficult to forget this. But the whole elite-run media machine is working really hard to get you to forget it. And in the same way as they've managed to sort of airbrush things like Christmas and Christianity out of the cultural narrative, and they did it really quickly. People now are afraid to use the words Happy Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas. I mean, I couldn't personally particularly care, but it was interesting to me how quickly it was done. People now automatically would just they say Happy Holidays. This sort of very bland thing. So they've been trained in just a few years, not even to disregard their own traditions, their own holidays. Well, the same has happened with death. I've noticed the accepted nomenclature now is not died. You can't actually talk about anybody dying, because dying sounds a bit too final, doesn't it? A bit too much like the end of this whole round of shopping and so on. People don't die anymore in cultural narrative. They pass. He passed. He didn't pass away. This is what the Victorians would have called it. No, they didn't pass away. They just passed. It's like, whoops, just passed. Almost like you're playing a game of cards, and you decided to give up on your go this time. No, they're dead. You see, what happened was that they stopped breathing, and their body stopped functioning, and their soul has gone to wherever it's gone to. It's gone to the judgment, and they're not coming back. And some of them are going to the garden, and most of them, according to the Quranic narrative, are going to the fire. It sounds pretty different, doesn't it, to passing? Passing sounds like just some sort of minor mishap. Yeah, and the money doesn't save you. I think one of the few remaining wake-up calls that people in our generation have is, I mean, they do know that people like, let's say, for example, Steve Jobs was fabulously wealthy and extremely intelligent. Well, even he, quote unquote, passed. Nothing that he could do prevented him from passing, and he has now passed, and he is wherever he is. I have no idea. I have no window into that man's soul, but he is wherever he is. So we're separated from this, and I think part of it is to do with the fact that young men now don't really have a war. Those men who do fight, those men who are sent off to fight elite cabals, wars, etc., come back very changed. And I think it's not only because of their own actions, having been brought up playing video games, and they continue playing the video games on real people until finally it catches up with them what they've been doing, and then they have a breakdown. I mean, those young men, do have some connection with what's going on, but often they're not able to deal with the superficiality of the life that they're coming back into. So that's part of it. But for those of us who haven't had to go out and face the killing fields, we can get some sense of this by reading the Qur'an. But also, in previous generations, people were not, as I said before, not so far from death. People died around one. If you look at what we do in the West with our older people now, we put them in special sort of dying plantations called old people's homes. So we are separated from this. For myself, I consider myself very blessed, because I was brought up in this idiotic system like any of us, and by people who had absolutely no understanding of actually anything apart from a very superficial, bland concept that things should be quote unquote nice. But in a lot of ways, living in Russia pushed me up against life in a much more severe way. Also, I happened to have delivered my eldest son when he was born, because this is some 20 years ago, but because life in Russia was so tough then. It depends where you live now. It isn't. I mean, there are places where it's indistinguishable from the West. Many places actually. But at that time, it was drastically different, and I went on a midwifery course. So delivering, and the idea was that the midwife who was training us was to be present at the birth, but I just knew she wasn't going to be there. Sometimes you just know something, and I just knew that she wasn't going to be there, and I was right. And anyway, so we knew we couldn't go to the medical system at that time. I'm sure it's very different now, but when you deliver a child, when you not only see it, but you actually, that you're there, you have to do it. And cutting an umbilical cord, it really brings it home to you. I really seriously considered for a few days doing this as a profession. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever done. But it wasn't fun. It was a lot of things, but fun it was not. But it was incredibly sobering, and gave me the awareness that this life is actually a miracle. It's almost a banal miracle. It's we become used to it because because it's everything that we know. But it is a miracle, and when you are close to the birth process, you realize what a miracle that it is. I've also been close to death, and in the sense that I've handled a dead body, and a friend of mine's mother died very close to me, and I happened to be there, and this was in a hospital in Russia. And in the Russian system, you can't, a relative has to be there when they undress the body and so on, unless I believe it's in case that the nurses are accused of anything, of stealing anything. And my friend, he was distraught, and I said, "Don't." I said, "I'll take care of it." So I was there, and I helped undress this body and wrap it in a shroud, and move it onto a gurney and help that process go through. When you touch a dead body, when you touch a body that has been alive and now is not, again, this immediacy comes home to you. And I've seen quite a lot of dead people in this country. So I'm not saying that you have to go out and do those sorts of things, but I think when you do them, it does bring it home to you. There's the temporary nature of this life. In the absence of those things, I recommend to people, whenever I'm getting into this kind of conversation, go to a graveyard. Go and sit in a graveyard. Go and walk around a graveyard. And this life is temporary. So all of this fun that we're told is so wonderful and amazing, this is a distraction. And I would counsel people to be aware of that. So, death is coming. And not being aware of that, I would argue, is a fairly serious risk. And I just got a couple of verses that which are related to this subject. So the first one comes at 6:70, and it reads, "And leave thou those who take their doctrine as play and diversion, and whom the life of this world has deceived." So you warn these people, but ultimately you're supposed to leave them. Why? Because you can't really do anything to help them. Anyway, it continues, "And remind thou with it," i.e. with the Qur'an, "lest a soul be debarred for what it has earned, and it has not besides God ally or intercessor. And though it offer in compensation every equivalence, it will not be accepted from it. These are they who are debarred for what they earn. They have a scalding liquid and a painful punishment because of what they denied." That's 6:70. Now, I heard an interview with Richard Dawkins. He's a professional atheist, and as such, he argues along the lines of, why does God allow bad things? And which is a very odd argument. Stephen Fry uses the same argument, and at a superficial level I suppose it seems to be compelling. However, the people that I've always heard using these arguments tend to be having fabulously wealthy lives, and they never ask the question, why are they having such great lives? It's always, why do other people suffer? Well, I suppose if you judge a 3-act play, halfway through the first act, well then you get what you get. But anyway, this person, Richard Dawkins, he was asked about what his response would be if after death he faced God, and he said something to the effect that he would repeat the words of Bertrand Russell, which was, I'm misquoting, but it was words to the effect of, "Sir, why did you hide yourself?" I don't think that he's going to be upbraiding God, but anyway, the arrogance of these men. However, this was his argument. So why did you so successfully hide yourself? We're living actually in an entire creation of evidence. The evidence of our own bodies, of our own minds, of every microbe, every atom. This is the evidence. So they have a scalding liquid and painful punishment because of what they denied. I mean, your eyes are working, your ears are working, I'm communicating, you're listening to me. All of the functions and processes which are in operation right now are actually miracles, but we are separated from the scale and scope of these amazing miracles. And again, I think this is part of the trivialization of our existence, achieved through media and so on. And one of the remedies for this is time in a graveyard, or go to a hospital. If you can get into a hospital unit where people are dying. I mean, we're all dying. We're all on the same ultimate trajectory, and it can happen at any time. But the frivolousness and the fun, death isn't fun, passing isn't fun, but it is death. It is real. What I'm trying to say is, wake up now, because there's no VIP reception hall there, no matter how rich and successful you think you are now. Firstly, and secondly, you have the time that you have. I'm going to give you one more verse, maybe two. Here's one. Like those before you, stronger than you in might, and greater in wealth and children, they enjoyed their lot. And you enjoy your lot, as they enjoyed their lot who were before you. So this whole fun thing, has a long history. And you jest like those who jested. These their works are vain in this world and the hereafter. And these are the losers. Has not the report of those before them reached them, the people of Nuh and Ad and Thamud, and the people of Ibrahim and the people of Madian, and the cities thrown down? Their messengers came to them with clear evidence, and God wronged them not, but they wronged their souls. That's at 969 through 70. And this is going to become more of a thing with me as we move forward, God willing, is I'm going to be identifying parallels between these previous civilizations which God destroyed. And as we go through them, as I'm not doing it now, but as I do start to unpick each one, we'll see that the current civilization that we are in now embodies pretty much all of the characteristics of all of those civilizations. The only difference is that those civilizations received warners, after which the punishments of God became binding. This is the thread which runs through the Qur'an, like Brighton through a stick of Brighton rock. But people's attention has been deflected from this by the creation of a religion found nowhere in the Qur'an. And now I'm going to close with 44, 38 through 42. And we created not the heavens and the earth and what is between them in jest. We created them only aright, but most of them know not. The day of decision is an appointed time for them altogether. The day a friend can in nothing avail a friend, and they will not be helped, save he on whom God has mercy. He is the mighty, the merciful. Now this day, that's 44, 38 through 42, that day is where all the people you know or have heard of who have gone, who have passed. It's where you're going, it's where I'm going, it's where we're all going. You know, we're all going toward what I call the zinger. If you go into a butcher's shop, I don't know if it's the same in your country now, but certainly in England, when I was growing up, you used to have these metal contraptions on the ceiling with look like a fluorescent light within it that flies are attracted to. It might take them a while, but eventually they get there. And when they get there, they go zzz, that's it. The fly has passed. We're all going toward the zinger. No amount of video games, entertainment, fashion items, money, holidays, mutual envy, all the things people think are so important, endless conversation and chat, none of that is going to make any difference. Doesn't matter how much time you spend on Facebook. Doesn't matter how many likes you get. None of this matters. None of it matters. What matters is, that you believed in God and the last day and did good works. Those are the three things. And when you get there, there aren't going to be any hashtag Me Too campaigns or sort of shaming God into being particularly nice to this minority group or that minority group. There are no minority groups. There are only people. There are only what you did, what you believed in, what you did. All the rest of it, whatever your identity politics are, and all of this stuff that makes you feel special and safe and loved and protected. None of that matters there. So I think if we all spend a little more time in the graveyard and reading the Qur'an, we'll have a sort of a conception of this. My advice is get this now, because there is no way back. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short. Eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.